Celebration of another kind took over the Baden Street area today. The Hanover Project reunion took place over at Baden Park. Back in the 1950s, the Hanover Houses were Rochester's first attempt at public housing for low-income families. It was made up of 7 buildings with spacious apartments for each family. While the original buildings were demolished in the 80s, the legacy lives on. Organizers say it's not just about the buildings, though, it's about the community. A lot of smiles there. Looks like a fun time. The celebration has been a yearly event on Labor Day for the last 22 years.
From the painted boundary lines of Ward 3 to the concrete corridors of Hanover Houses, a brotherhood was forged not by chance, but by circumstance and a shared love of the game. They called themselves the Number Ones, a tight-knit circle of boys who became family, bound by competition, loyalty, and the streets they called home. What began on courts and fields evolved into something deeper, lifelong bonds shaped in the shadow of the projects. As they grew into men, they became more than friends. They became protectors, setting their own code, watching over their community. Hanover Houses didn't just raise them, it defined them, leaving an imprint on who they were and who they would become. You can't talk about the projects without talking about them. And you can't talk about them without recognizing the wider network friends, classmates, neighbors, and club members whose lives intersected with theirs. At the center of it all was the Baden Street Settlement, an institution that played a critical role in guiding, grounding, and supporting their journey. This story is reconstructed through a combination of archival photographs and carefully created AI-generated imagery, blending memory, history, and interpretation to bring a moment in time back to life. The Number Ones lived on the east side of Rochester from the early 1960s through the 1980s in what was known as Ward 13. Their world was defined by clear boundaries: Clifford Avenue, North Street, North Clinton, and down to Nassau Street. Within that space, their lives were concentrated between Joseph Avenue and Hudson Avenue. But geography alone doesn't tell the story. Their daily lives and their identity centered around a few key corridors: Joseph Avenue, Herman Street, now known as Upper Falls Blvd, and Kelly Street. This was their ground, and this is where their story begins. In the decades after World War II, Rochester was growing. Industry was strong. Companies like Kodak and Xerox were expanding, drawing people from across the country. Among them were thousands of black families, many arriving from the South, looking for opportunity, stability, and a better life. In the 1960s, downtown Rochester was the heart of everyday life. Midtown Plaza had fountains, clock shows, department stores, restaurants, and at Christmas time, the famous monorail and animated holiday displays that generations of Rochester kids remember. Rochester's old subway system were still visible in the 1960s, filled with busy sidewalks, movie theaters, department stores, and a downtown that felt alive day and night. In the 1960s, Rochester's west side, especially the Plymouth and Jefferson Avenue neighborhoods, was a community built on hard work, resilience, and pride. Families packed the streets, children filled the courtyards and playgrounds, and neighbors looked out for one another. Despite the struggles that came with poverty, segregation, and limited opportunities, the West Side had its own culture, its own rhythm.
This new cooler looks like a real winner. Yeah, the space inside is huge.
Lifelong friendships were formed, where respect was earned, and where the streets themselves became part of the story. The east side of Rochester, around Joseph Avenue and North Clinton Avenue, was one of the busiest and most culturally rich parts of the city. Along Joseph Avenue, small businesses lined the blocks. Many were originally owned by Jewish, Italian, and later black entrepreneurs as the neighborhood changed through the decades. Public housing developments, often simply called the projects by residents, became home to many working families. Moving towards Herman Street, back down toward North Clinton Avenue, the neighborhood remained filled with activity. North Clinton Avenue was packed with storefront churches, markets, tailor shops, taverns, music spots, and social clubs. The area reflected the changing face of Rochester itself. The Hanover Houses housing project occupied the area bounded by Vienna Street, Joseph Avenue, and Herman Street. The first structure in the complex, known as Building 1, was located at 30 Vienna Street. The original Jordan Health Center was initially established in the basement of this building. Between buildings 1 and 7 was a playground. Building 6, located at 95 Hanover Street on the corner of Edwards Street and Vienna Street, the mailbox were for the residents. Building 5 housed a grocery store in its basement. Building 4, located at 15 Hanover Street, served as the neighborhood pool room. Building 3, at 10 Hanover Street, contained a daycare center, as did Building 2 at 20 Vienna Street, reflecting the large number of working families who lived within the community. Friday nights in the Hanover Houses were especially memorable and reflected the close-knit social culture of the neighborhood. Residents often hosted house parties and traditional Friday night fish fries that brought families and neighbors together. While the adults socialized, danced, and celebrated in the front rooms, the children were usually gathered in the back rooms, where they created their own fun and often found themselves getting into harmless mischief.
Can we play?
But what they found was a city divided. Housing was the first barrier. Black residents were largely confined to specific neighborhoods, places like the 3rd Ward and areas along Joseph Avenue. These weren't just communities by choice. They were shaped by policy, by real estate practices, and by resistance from white neighborhoods that refused integration. Overcrowding followed. Multiple families in buildings meant for one. Limited access to mortgages or relocation. Opportunities existed, but not equally. Employment told a similar story. Rochester's industries were thriving, but access to those jobs was not evenly distributed. Black workers were often hired into the lowest-paying positions, excluded from skilled trades, blocked from advancement. Even at major employers, upward mobility was limited. You could get in, but you couldn't move up. Then there was policing. In neighborhoods like Joseph Avenue, the relationship between residents and the police was strained, often openly hostile. Complaints were common. Excessive force, harsh enforcement of minor offenses, a lack of respect in everyday interactions. To many residents, police presence didn't feel like protection. It felt like control. People saw what was coming. Displacement, demolition, the loss of businesses and homes. The future didn't look stable. It looked uncertain. And yet, life went on. Clarissa Street thrived with music and nightlife. Joseph Avenue bustled with shops and families. There was culture, resilience, and community. But underneath it all, the pressure remained. By the summer of 1964, that pressure had built for years. Not from one issue, but from many. Housing restrictions, economic inequality, daily friction with police, fear of losing entire neighborhoods. No single moment caused it, but many moments led up to it. So when the police arrived on Joseph Avenue that Friday night, when voices were raised, when force was used, it wasn't just about that moment. It was about everything that had come before it. And that's why, when the glass broke, it didn't stop at one window. It spread, because the tension had already been there waiting.
Hi, I'm Algie, and my family moved here to Rochester, New York from Macon County, Alabama. We moved here on July 4th with my mother, brother, and 2 sisters following my older sister. We heard there was going to be a block party up the street, So my mother told my sister to keep us in the house because we was too young to attend, and a good thing she did that cause. 2 weeks later, a riot broke out right up the street.
What began as a confrontation on a summer night at a neighborhood party became 3 days that reshaped a city. Not just through fire and glass, but through what followed. Landmarks on both the east and west side in Ward 3. In Rochester were not only damaged, they were ultimately removed. And with them, a community that had once defined Rochester's cultural and economic life. It began like 100 other humid summer nights. On Friday, July 24th, 1964, someone had started playing music. Music, conversation, and a block party spill into the street typical. People started dancing. It wasn't organized. It didn't need to be. This was what the neighborhood did on a Friday night. As it got late in the evening, shortly after 10:30 p.m., patrol cars passed through here all the time, so initially it didn't feel unusual. But this time they stopped. Police arrived to disperse the gathering. Officers stepped out and began telling people to clear the street. There was resistance, not organized, not violent at first, just people not ready to leave their own block on a summer night. It turned confrontational. Then came the moment. An arrest was attempted. A man pulled away. A woman intervenes, and the officers responded forcefully. Voices rose. And then, in an instant, everything changed. The spark has been lit. Someone threw a bottle. It shattered against the street or a car, or maybe just the air between people. No one would later agree on exactly where it landed. But they all remembered the sound, because after that, the line was crossed. Within minutes, the crowd thickened. More people came out of nearby buildings, drawn by noise and confusion. The police pushed forward, trying to regain control. The crowd pushed back. What had been a street of music and conversation became a street of movement, fast, chaotic, uncertainty. Windows began to break. First one storefront, then another. Glass spilled out onto the sidewalk. Some people were still shouting. Others had already started pulling things from the broken window. The night stretched on. Streets were blocked off, so people couldn't return to their homes. By midnight, unrest spreads along Joseph Avenue and adjacent street. They began to fall back. Through the early hours of Saturday morning, the disturbance spread up and down Joseph Avenue. Fires started not large at first. Small flames inside looted stores, fed by wood, paper, alcohol. But in buildings where businesses filled the ground floor and families lived above, even a small fire was enough to change everything. Sirens echoed, but they couldn't keep up. The night stretched on. Streets were blocked off, so people couldn't return to their homes. Between Nassau Street and Baden Street, storefronts were smashed. Cars were overturned. The police lost control of the crowd, so calls went out for reinforcements. When the sun came up, the city saw what had happened. Glass covered the sidewalks. Storefronts stood open, gutted.
No justice, no peace.
Smoke still rose from some buildings. But the unrest hadn't ended. It had only moved. The tension and unrest crossed the Genesee River and spread citywide to the west side. The Third Ward became the focal point. Clarissa Street, North Plymouth Avenue. These streets were different from Joseph Avenue, but the conditions were the same: dense blocks of small businesses, clubs, taverns, and apartments. Here, too, windows began to break. Here, too, goods were taken from stores. And here, the fires grew larger. Entire interiors burned. Flames moved from storefront to storefront. In some cases, the structures held. In others, the damage would never be repaired. Placed fire damage in adjacent structures. Places that had been part of the community for decades. Bars, shops, and small hotel located at 461 Clarissa Street, a Green Book-listed hotel serving black travelers. Located in the heart of the Clarissa business strip. Looting of nearby storefronts. Fire, Valet's Tavern, and nearby bars. Windows smashed. Interiors looted. The Python Room, a jazz club district near Clarissa and Troop area, which was the cultural center of Rochester's black community, and surrounding blocks saw fires set in commercial buildings. Damage included grocery stores, liquor stores, clothing shops. By Saturday night, the situation had gone beyond the control of local police. The governor called in the New York National Guard. Troops entered the city in trucks. Armored vehicles enter city streets. Rifles were visible. Curfews were announced. The streets that had been filled with music less than 24 hours earlier were now under military watch. Sunday passed under tension. There were still incidents, scattered fires, arrests, moments of resistance.
Move back behind the line! We ain't going nowhere!
But the presence of soldiers changed the rhythm of the city.
Everybody step back and let's see what's going on.
We ain't doing nothing, we're just standing here.
Movement slowed, crowds thinned. People stayed inside. Those who had businesses walked through what was left of them. Some tried to salvage what they could. Others simply stood and looked. By Monday, July 27th, order was restored. The fires were out. The streets were cleared. The patrols remained. But the city was not the same. In the days that followed, officials counted damage in numbers, arrests, buildings affected, dollars lost. But those numbers didn't tell the whole story. The fires had been put out. The glass had been swept away. Troops still stood watch in parts of the city. But the movement, the noise, the urgency had faded. The 1964 Rochester race riot was over. But nothing was the same. In neighborhoods across Rochester, the signs of those 3 days lingered. Boarded storefronts, empty shelves. Because what had been damaged wasn't just property. It was a network of streets. Joseph, Clarissa, Plymouth, where people knew each other, where businesses were part of daily life, where a Friday night dance in the street could happen without planning. Some of those buildings would be repaired. Many would not. In the years that followed, entire sections, especially along Joseph Avenue and Clarissa Street, would be demolished, cleared away in the name of renewal within a decade. Businesses, including those like the Gibson Hotel, disappeared. And so, what began as a single moment on a summer night became something larger. Not just 3 days of unrest, but the beginning of a transformation that would reshape whole neighborhoods and find the Third Ward largely erased from the map. Families found themselves adjusting to what had been lost and what had been exposed. For adults, the questions were immediate. What now? What changes? What happens to this city? But for children, the timeline was different. Summer didn't stop. Days stretched on. Vacant lots became playgrounds. Streets, even changed ones, were still places to run, to talk, to grow. Slowly, almost quietly, life began to move forward again. By the fall of 1964, just weeks after the unrest, school doors opened across the city. In the neighborhoods around the Hanover Houses, one of Rochester's public housing developments, a new chapter was beginning. 2 boys, Algie Van Hoos and Percy Dyke, who lived on Edwards Street, were getting ready to start 4th grade. They walked into school number 9 that fall, not as part of a headline, not as part of a riot, but as kids. And inside those classrooms, and on those playgrounds, something else was beginning. Friendships forming, identities taking shape. Their story started not in the chaos of July, but in the quiet return to routine that followed. A group coming together. They would come to be known as the Number Ones. Now, exactly who were the Number Ones? With this area as their base, in the 4th grade at school number 9, Algie and Percy met Lucius, and the three quickly became friends. Lucius lived on Stephanie Place, a dead-end street right next to the school, which was located on the corner of Joseph and Kelly Street, what is now the grounds of Wilson Commencement Park.
I was the only one in my family who went to number 9 school. So from the time that I stepped into the building until I made it home, I got into a fight almost every day, because I was the new kid on the block. The older kids acted like that was my introduction to the neighborhood. After a while, I got sick and tired of feeling somebody's punching bag, so I started hanging out with Percy, and together we could look out for one another. Once we started hanging out with Albert Lee, I didn't get into no more fights.
That same year, in the fall of 1964, they all played Pop Warner football for the Baden Street League. It was there they met other boys from the neighborhood who also attended school number 9. Through football, they formed a bond, what would become the foundation of their crew. They looked out for one another, on and off the field. By 5th grade, the group began to grow. Larry Cheeks, who lived on Emmett Street, and Mark Coleman from Thomas Street joined them. From the fall of 1965 through the summer of 1966, they played sports together through Baden Street after school, strengthening their connection. In 6th grade, Percy brought in Robert Wilson, who lived on Bowes Street near Edwards. Around the same time, Neil Henderson from Joseph Avenue, Brian Frame from Robber Street, and Jimmy Lee Holmes from Cuba Place joined the crew. All of them attended school number 9 and played sports through the Baden Street settlement between 1966 and 1967. By 7th grade, the group experienced a surge in growth. The Bruner brothers Willie and Donald from Catherine Street joined, along with Rufus Jackson, who also lived on Catherine. Around that same time, Alonzo Borum came into the fold. He lived on Thomas Street, as well as Albert Lee Williams, who lived in Building 2 of the Hanover Houses. He and Algie were the only two who lived in the Hanover Projects. Leonard Bradford lived on Cleveland Street, which was off Hudson Avenue. David Peterson joined. He also lived on Vose Street. Most of these additions came during the fall of 1966. Finally, between the fall of 1967 and the summer of 1968, when the boys were in 8th grade, Larry Cheeks brought in Willie Anderson, known to everyone as Punch, who lived on Kelly Street. With his arrival, the group was complete. By then, the crew had grown to 19 members. They also had close friends who spent time with them, like Robert Wilson's brother Johnny, Ambrose Allen, who people said looked like Teddy Pendergrass, Tony Darden, Cody Strong, Rufus Jackson's cousin Eddie Noble, Winston Anderson, Bobby Albritton, and Moe and Gene Perry. With a crew that size, their presence was known. People understood that they stood together. If you had a problem with one, you had a problem with all of them. Most people chose not to test that. Now, in 1967, Algie's mother moved the family into Hanover Houses, where they lived at 30 Vienna Street, which was Building 1. In the fall of 1967, Algie and Percy went to Frederick Douglass Middle School, and most of the guys went to Franklin High School, all but Mark Coleman. Douglass didn't have a sports team, so the guys continued to play sports for Baden Street. In the spring, on April 4th, 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. And in that same year, the fellas decided to formalize their union and became a club called the Number Ones, which stood for one for all and all for one. By forming a club, the fellas made their allegiance to one another even stronger. So, with their mentor Jakey Hart, they got together and created some rules.
We would be friends for life. There would be no leader. We held meetings at Baden Street. Crew voted, and whoever didn't want to participate was excused, and that was okay. It was on the one, can you dig? We vowed to help and protect one another. You couldn't come into the projects unless you had a pass. or you got dealt with. If you fought one, you fought us all, so folks knew better. We vowed to protect the folks who lived in the projects.
At Franklin, from 1969 to 1970, Larry Cheeks, Punch Anderson, Jimmy Lee Williams, Willie and Donald Brunner, and Lucius Allen played JV football. Punch Anderson played varsity football. Lucius and Leonard Bradford, Alonzo Borum, Punch, and Jimmy Lee played freshman basketball. And Leonard, Jimmy, Lee, Lucius, and L. Giles played JV basketball. For the years 1970 to 1971, over at East High School, Algie played varsity football, and he also played JV football with Percy Dyke and Mark Coleman. For basketball at East, Mark Coleman and Percy played JV basketball. Algie played JV basketball, and Mark played varsity basketball. Mark was also on the varsity football team. For the years 1970 to 1971 at Franklin High School, Brian, Neal, and Cheeks played JV basketball. For football, Neal played JV football. Jimmy Lee and Punch played varsity football. And Jimmy Lee and Lucius were Section 5 varsity basketball champions. For the years 1971 to 1972 at Franklin High School, all of the guys were now playing on the varsity teams. Jimmy, Lee, Algie, Mark, Brian, Neal, and Punch were all playing varsity football. Jimmy Lee, Algie, Neal, and Cheeks were playing varsity basketball. For their senior year, 1972 to 1973, Mark and Algie played varsity football. Jimmy Lee and Neal played varsity basketball, and Algie also played on the varsity baseball team. Demolition of Hanover houses known as the Projects began around 1980 due to a serious decline from poor maintenance and an aging infrastructure. Demolition of the buildings ended in the mid-1980s. The City and Housing Authority replaced the complex with lower-density housing and redevelopment projects, now known as Lena Gant Estates, and the residents of Hanover Houses were moved into newly developed housing on William Warfield Drive located across the street off Joseph Avenue and Upper Falls Blvd. Today, Hanover Houses are remembered as both an important chapter in Rochester's housing history and a lesson in the challenges of mid-20th century urban planning.
I know how I met Lucius. I met Lucius because, like I said, I was in the fifth grade, and the teacher wanted me to be a traffic guard. Lucius was already a traffic guard, you know, and I kind of liked it, being a traffic guard, you know, and so she made me a traffic guard too.
You was being selected with the gym teacher, Mr. Gallup, he was selected. Yeah. You was being initiated by one of the teachers you asked, right? Being that we was all basically LGI, Lucius playing sports and stuff like that. Previously, Lucius' sister was a safety guard, right? And these guys was getting ready to graduate, all right, to go on. So now it filled spots for us, LG, myself, Lonzo, which is one of us, number ones, and some more guys become safety patrol. I remember that very well. We all was on safety patrol at number 9. Okay. Yeah, and that's how I met Lucius. But then one day, we were sitting in the projects on the steps by LG building, and we sit down. We was just having a normal conversation about whatever, and I believe LG said, "Listen, man, look what our initials spell: Percy, LG, and Lucius," and we came up with the word pal. And that's how we all became friends. Yeah. And after that, we start recruiting other people. Most of us was all athletes. We played sports together. That's how we all blended together. Yeah, in 6th and 7th grade, we had started a little basketball league here at Baden Street, Sellerman. Go back getting in Baden Street, I think about when you used to come here, you used to have a pink card, and they gave you a number. And you used to check in with that number. And a lot of times we all had cars, and we came here after school and we played basketball. You know, just random games and so forth. And eventually we came up with some of the older guys that was working here, decided they wanted to start a league. So we started recruiting one another. So on and on, we had started to form the league here. And it turned out to be a good league. It converted to the winter league, the summer league in basketball. So the 6th and 7th grade, that's basically what we did here. We played basketball together. LG and I was on the same team. Chicks was on the different teams.
7th grade, 7th or 8th grade, that's when we met Cheeks and Punch, more or less. They started coming over to Baden Street because they used to go to Clinton. Then they started coming over here to play basketball with us, and they joined our league, and that's how Cheeks and Punch became part of our club. But go back to the basketball team, when we first started, like I said, we used to travel out of town all the time. Baden Street used to take us to different places, and we traveled with the big team. That was a lot of fun. Baden Street did a lot of stuff with us, not trying to plug them and nothing, you know, but they did a lot of stuff for us back in the early days. You know, it was a big part of our life, you know, and growing up.
Okay, me and Punch came in to play ball. We started playing ball. We got on the same team with Lucius, Mark Coleman, and Rufus Jackson. And all those guys was already in.
When Jimmy beat Chris up, this X-rated boy, I got a memory here.
Okay.
Yeah, I
remember Albert Thomas?
Albert Thomas, they jumped on, Leonard and Rufus jumped on Albert Thomas right there in Chatham Garden. He played with us.
Right there by the building.
That's right there by the building.
Scared the Strong from, what was his name?
Cody didn't play with us.
No, he was, I had him on that team, but y'all spooked him that night before. He didn't come on. He didn't come over. I had him on the team. I had Louis Freeman. I was the coach of that team. But y'all scared him the night before.
I don't know, but I played under Jimmy for 3 years, and me and Liddell, Leonard Bradford, Lonzo, and we beat y'all twice out there. We beat y'all inside and we beat y'all outside.
Right.
Yes, well, hold on, man. I'm having to call Jimmy.
Yes, we did. But what happened also too, Lewis came up from down south.
And that's why they thought they had the better team. No, he played with them. They thought they had the better team. They had a good team.
Yeah.
I don't believe y'all beat us. Did they beat us, Punch?
I remember my cousin Butler played with us too.
Yeah, that's the time. That's the time we whooped your butt. Well, AK, we was trying to be a club, and all we wanted to do, we wanted to play sports. That's all we wanted to do, play sports and party. And that's when me and Punch came in. Percy and Rufus and Lucius was already performing, playing the sports thing. But most of the time that we hung out together is when we got closer, playing sports over here at Baden Street, or just playing in projects, or playing in number 6.
You know, that's when we formed the name too. We went from pals to the number ones up there in the meeting, knocking around names and stuff. We were trying to find a name.
Yeah. And
some way or another, we came up with the number ones, and that stuck to everybody. So, yeah, that's good, number ones. And we decided to go with that name. But like you were saying, a lot of our interaction came because people came at us a lot of times because we played sports and we played them well, you know, and couldn't nobody beat us. And we used to play rivalries against other parts of the city. And
we were like very competitive.
Yeah.
We didn't mind challenging anyone. You know, it's like we beat them in their own backyards. And it just stuck. And next thing you know, we dating girls that other cats our age couldn't get. It was just all about sports.
But
we concentrated on, we considered ourselves better than anybody that was in our age group.
Or older, didn't matter.
And then you guys were going to East Side, LG, Percy, and Mark. Then they all ended up coming to Franklin. So just I think because of our club, we all ended up at Franklin together.
No, it was a reorganization.
Reorganization of all the schools,
That's
system.
what brought it.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah, reorganization.
Okay, I know when they all came to Franklin.
Yeah, we had no choice. Yeah.
That's when we got more stronger and we started hanging more.
But it's one point that we left out about being the number one. The rules was, everything that we did, remember, we was number ones, right? Everything we did was on the one. You recall that? Okay. If you got in the beef with LG, then you the leader. We had no leaders.
No,
everybody was number one, okay? Yeah. We had no leaders. Remember this now. Okay, if you got in a beef with LG, then you the leader. Okay? So now you call what you want to do to LG. You want to let him go or you want to jump him. You got two choices, okay? Now, the first choice you make is your first choice. That's what we go on. Now, if you say we're going to let him go and you walk away 1 second later, you say, no, let's get him. Nobody in the Warrens have to come with you, but anybody want to follow you, it was okay. But you can't be mad with nobody else that didn't go with you. Everything was on the one.
Yeah, but I don't even remember somebody was going somewhere and everybody didn't go.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just like when, for instance, when Lucius then went across town and had that beef with them boys over there, right? Everybody didn't leave out of club ball because they didn't want to go. They said, we're not going. Because we were saying, hey man, yes, y'all going over there missing them boys, man. They ain't us. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So everything was on the one. So Lucius, Rufus, Leonard, Lonzo, none of them was mad.
Well, we had a lot of
Well, I know what you're saying, but that was more or less with stolen cars and stuff, and we was drunk too, coming out of Hobie, coming from Hobie at that time, you know. But
I think y'all missed the point.
But I know what you're saying.
I think you're missing the point, though. Really, everything. What was the purpose of having number one?
But I don't think I never remember sitting down forming rules. But if we did, you know, but like I said, we had meetings, so the matter was formed in the meetings because we had meetings every week.
Right upstairs.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So it could have been formed. So I ain't saying it wasn't, you know, but I know one thing about it, we all had each other back growing up. You know, if you was in the number ones, we had your back. Yeah. And nobody went nowhere by themselves unless they wanted to, you know what I'm saying? We always had backup, and we had a genuine love for each other.
Yeah.
We grew up with a genuine love for each other, you know, and that's still formed today, you know. And I could say that, you know, I still got the same love I had back then for all of them guys, and I'm sure they feel the same way about me, you know.
But what about the time Brian got jumped and the whole project went over to Lower Street?
About 100 people.
100 people went over there.
Yeah.
To go after those guys that would chase and jump Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's when number ones were real popular. Everybody, we had groupies then that hang around with us a lot. They almost considered they was a number one because they just hung around with us.
And then they come to the meeting and want to join. I mean, want to get in the group because they done been down with us on a fight or something, you know, and they get voted down, you know. But cause we had a standard now. It was a thumbs up or thumb down, you know, whether we wanted somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when we voted them down, that was their only chance to be affiliated with us. They didn't get that second chance.
Yeah, and they still come around too, though. They become a groupie.
And some people, more or less, what they had to bring to the group, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I know one particular guy, I ain't gonna mention his name because that might, but because his mother would allow us to have parties at his house, you know what I'm saying? House parties. So we loved that. Plus he had a couple of sisters too, you know, which wasn't bad, you know. But we used to get parties at his house every weekend, you know. And his mama didn't mind you cutting the lights off too, you know. That was a good thing. That's when we was young though, you know. 14, 15, you know what I'm saying? Giving parties, good parties. We gave great house parties, man. Mostly everything we did, we more or less did together and dominated it, you know. And but there was a lot of gangs around here at that time. There was about 3 or 4 gangs around this area at that time, you know, people that hung out with certain groups, you know. That's who you like, that's who you hung out with, you know. And, but we, all of us had love for each other though, you know.
But some of the guys, even they call themselves number ones, they never did things that, you know, we did. And they always want to be on the background, but when something jumped down that we had serious about, they didn't want to be part of that. When we get back to celebrate, they in there helping celebrate. Time goes on. Yeah, I was in the number one. Motherfucker, you ain't never fought nobody.
Well, at that time, to be a part of Baden Street structure, you had to be a club. So I was in a club, a band's club, it was called the In Crowd. So there's a lot of sports activity going on. We had a traveling basketball team, and then they come through. And at the time, you had to, it was mentioned earlier, you had to be at least 13 to come at night. So most of them, you know, beginning to be 12 and 13, so they started filtering in, and they started playing ball, and then they developed this following. So at the time, Baden Street, you have to have a club. So if you was an official club, then you can rent space here. You know, so you had to be a chaperone or someone that was in an existing club. So, you know, I had a liking for them and they had a liking for me, and we just would get together, and that's where they would get and have meetings at. You know, I don't know what they talked about in their meetings. I was able to get in the room and so forth, and afterwards we hung out. But yes, there was a structured group back then, because going back to Baden Street, you have to have had a meeting, and you had to have an agenda to have a meeting. So that's that's how I got connected with them.
Yeah, it was a lot of other programs that Jakey helped us out with, because we set up things like remember every Wednesday we would be special. We rode right out to the Pancake House, and they always had a special out there, and we'll mount up in the Baden Street truck and go out there and eat out there, and sometimes we had a few little camp outs out at Minden Pond, and it was a lot of activities going on other than basketball that Baden Street and Jakey and them provided for us. You know, it's just more than just sports. And, you know, any of them developed, you know, had education programs for us that it was existing if we wanted to participate in them. So we had a lot going on other than sports, but mainly we was always, like Punch said, we was all good athletes, no matter what it is. We challenged each other, challenged someone on outside, but we had a good leader, you know, Jake.
Also, I do remember Jakey, even Gerald Anderson, Beekles. All those guys helped most of us get driving licenses.
True.
Because at the time, we didn't have cars, our family didn't have cars, so they came with us to pass the driving test, you know, to use their cars, because our family didn't have any. Like, for instance, Beekles, he went with me, and I know he did it for 2 or 3 other people.
And I recall Gerald Anderson doing it for me.
Yeah, but most of us taught ourselves, because we used to steal cars. We were stealing cars.
They didn't teach us how to drive.
No. But I'm saying,
we had to go take that road test.
But they were calling themselves to stop us from stealing cars. Remember, they took it down in Psychedelic Shack and called themselves roughing us up. Yeah, whooping us with belts.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you don't remember?
Oh, hell no, I wasn't part of that.
Yeah.
Hell no. I would have died and went to hell first.
Do you remember that?
No.
LG was in the house at that time.
I was in the house by ass.
At 7 o'clock, LG was in the house.
In the house by ass. I wasn't going to be part of that.
We stopped stealing cars, though. We stopped stealing the cars, though.
LG was in the house at that time. Yeah.
Bullshit.
Kenny Harrison, Poncho.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's how a lot they helped us out. I mean, they helped me get driver's license because my family didn't own a car, you know, and that was just one of the main things that was real important to me. I know those guys helped me out with that.
One thing. Oh, go ahead, G.
We weren't no Boy Scouts now. We ain't trying to sound like we were Boy Scouts.
Excuse me, there was one Boy Scout. 293.
I remember one time they tried to get all the number one at Franklin to come to a Boy Scout meeting because we were going to go over to another school because they had jumped Bryant. You know, that whole thing with Bryant started the whole day that day. And we were all going over to Monroe. And it was like maybe 200 or 300 people. They ain't about 17 number ones, but it was 200 or 300 people going over there. So they would stop and picking up people in police cars, and Mr. Wilson said, I want all y'all take this car, and we're gonna have a meeting, and I want all y'all come to this meeting. And he gave us a date, and did nobody show up.
No, okay, I remember that too. He gave all of us our Army card.
Yeah.
That's what it was, your class F, 4F, something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, as soon as y'all graduate, y'all going straight to the Army. I remember that well. That's what Mr. Wilson did. He gave us our Army card because we weren't eligible then.
Yeah.
But he had all our names on them Army cards because, you know, he was a colonel. Yeah. So he had us all set up to go to the Army. He was a colonel. So Colonel Wilson had us ready to go to the service. He said, you boys ain't going to jail. Y'all going to the Army.
And then when nobody come to the meeting, you saw him in the school the next day, he like, everybody just kept walking by him, not even looking at him and stuff, because we know he was looking at us.
And I came here in 68 to 69. The street we lived on back then was on Joyner Street. Back then was off of Kelly Street. It ran off of Kelly Street. And at the time, I wasn't part of the Baden Street thing because I started off at Clinton Avenue Recreation Center until I met Cheeks. And that's when it transitioned over to Baden Street because I came too late to play Little League and Pop Warner and everything, so I went straight to the 8th grade. And then me and Cheeks finally ended up into the Baden Street thing, and that's where we met these guys. I didn't arrive in Rochester until the 68, 69 year. And I actually met these guys toward the end of 68. And we went from there.
And I grew up in Hanover Houses, matter of fact, building 21H. And I first met Percy. I met Percy through Gerald Anderson. I'm 4 years older than Percy, and Gerald was the brothers to Puncho. And I also knew Larry Cheeks' older brother, Charles Cheeks. His gang was the Centurions. Our gang was the In Crowd, and then the number ones they developed. So that basically we would step to each other, but we all grew up in Hanover Houses, you know, and which I'm forever grateful to meet all these great gentlemen here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I lived on, I came here 64. We was living on Gilmore Street off of Hudson. And we had lived there, and I frequently moved from Gilmore Street to Chatham Gardens. You know, I lived with my grandmother for a while on Gilmore Street until she decided she wanted to move back down south. And then at that time, my older sister decided that it was 4 of us, so the 2 younger siblings went back down with my grandmother. So my older sister decided, her and her husband decided just for me to stay here with them. So I ended up growing up in Chatham Gardens.
I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Yeah, we had went down south, and after we returned from down south, during the course of the ride, I moved over in Chatham Garden and lived with my sister for a good period of time until, you know, my adulthood. I decided to move out. Okay.
Yeah, well, we came from down south and moved on Herman Street where my sister was living, because she was already here from down south. So she sent out the family, and we came and moved on Herman Street. But after a little while, we decided to get our own place, and that's where I met Percy too, and Mark, and more or less, we left Herman Street and moved to Edwards Street out of my sister's house. And we stayed on Edwards Street for a couple of years, and then the house caught on fire. And matter of fact, we was playing baseball over here at number 6, and somebody said, somebody's house on fire. So, you know, and I knew it was close to my house and Percy too. So me and Percy started running and went over there. The fire was gushing out the house. Percy went through the fire, and my sister was coming down the stairs and got him brought out of there, man. But he did that, man. He got some nerve. We call him stunt man sometimes too, man. He was really damn thing. But he had the nerve to go in there to save my sister from me, you know. And I'm forever grateful for that, you know, because that shows our bond, you know. But then we moved into projects after that. That's when I moved into projects.
Well, our family, when we came here, we were staying on Brookend Park, and then we moved into the project. When the riot was going on, while we was up in building 3 on the 7th floor, we were looking at the riot as it was going on, and we were trying to get my mom to let us go down there and join the riot, but she wouldn't let us go. But that next day, we went down there anyway, and we helped ourselves do some things.
Got a few gifts.
Yeah, I got a few gifts. And while we were living in the project, that's when they were charging like $250 to get a card to come to Baden Street Settlement.
Right.
But my mom couldn't afford to bring all of us over here, so I used to come over and sneak in some kind of way. I was always able to sneak in. Then after a while, they found out that people that couldn't afford it, they started letting people in free. And then that's when I started playing ball, and the first person I think I met in the number 1 was Percy. And other than that, Then we moved in the project, then we moved over to Emmett Street. Then when we moved over to Emmett Street, that's when I started going to Clinton Avenue Center. And when we was at Clinton Avenue Center, that's when I met Punch and Leroy Myers and them, and Mr. Thurman Bodies was a good dad to us. He was like a father to us, and they used to always take us on trips in other cities, and we ain't had no money to buy nothing to eat, but they would pay for the food and everything. Him and Mr. Wesley, and I miss those two guys for real. Those two guys really was like dads to me, because I ain't had no father, so they were my dad away from home, and I would always think about them, and especially Mr. Body.
I always been accused of starting the fights, didn't the fight right. Cheeks, instant. He getting a beef downtown with Flint Street Brown. I'm gonna give it to you straight. He come by my house. He don't fight his own fight. He come by my house. He get me. Ask me to come help him. I go down there to help Cheeks. What he do? He see Flint Street Brown, runs off, leave me on Main Street. Leave me on Main Street. I had to walk home. I live on Ellison Street. Come on.
You was in my car.
You took me. You came and begged me, say, man.
You was in my car.
No, come on, Cheeks. I got good remember, man. Flint Street stopped right there. Flint Street pulled the gun out. You left me.
You was in my car.
I got out your car to talk to Flint for you.
No, person.
Yeah, I got memory. Like, I'm not sitting there with my mama grave. I'm telling you, man. I know it don't come be true. I keep telling you, I prove things, man.
No, but I'm just saying, a lot of stuff happened, man.
Well, I don't care if y'all memory gone,
we
man.
Got 60 years.
Mine ain't
we got
gone.
60 years of friendship. A lot of stuff happened, man. We had a lot of fights, but you know what, though? We wasn't Boy Scouts, but we wasn't no chumps, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wasn't nobody gonna.
We wasn't starting fights.
No. See, it was more than that. But you make it look like I was the fighter, I was doing something. A lot of time y'all did something, the first thing they said, I don't want to be there. First thing they said, Percy, I wouldn't even be there.
Well, I think, and I'm gonna say definitely me. If we go in somewhere, I'm always gonna want Percy to be with me, because I know he ain't gonna run. He's gonna stay there. He's gonna have my back. If it's a one-on-one with me and another person, he's gonna make sure there's nobody else gonna jump in. Where a lot of the guys, they wouldn't do that. Percy probably was the most streetwise of all of us, and not to say that he was the fighter or nothing, but yeah, he was aggressive. But he was the guy that, if he's with one of us or with me, if he's with me and I gotta get in a beef with somebody, I'd rather for it to be him one. If I gotta start me a basketball league, I'm probably gonna want Cheeks with me. Or something, those probably I say Lucius. But if I'm fighting, I'd rather have Percy by my side.
Yeah, but me and Percy went from Frederick Douglass to East High. From Frederick Douglass to East High, because we always same school or whatever. But anyway, we was on the same team. We played football together, we played basketball together, And whenever we had to play against Franklin or whoever, a lot of times we did play against our friends, but it was the same competition because we always been competitive, so it wasn't no holding back. Like that's just like if we play anything now, it's gonna be competitive because we was very competitive, And I just think we grew up a bunch of guys that was in a club that had each other back, and we believed that if we got into something or something happened, that you could count on the person you was with. I believe that, and I believe that today. You know what I'm saying? Because even if I think I'm in some shit now, believe me, I'll call them. I just said that last week. Pissed at somebody, and I'll tell her, well, I know who I'm gonna call to bring him up here, But bottom line, because I know he got my back, but not that the guys that was there with me, I believe they had my back too. But they was trying to be peacemakers, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't in no peacemaking mood, you know what I'm saying? But and that's just the way it was sometimes, We had guys that did certain things in our club, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna tell their story, But and certain things we didn't. But eventually, the same things we wouldn't do early on in life, end up doing them later on,
Yeah.
You're like getting high, Early on, certain things I didn't get high on. But then I started getting high in high school, and that derailed my career as far as playing sports, Because I know I should have went somewhere in baseball or whatever, But getting high or not going to the All-Star game, because I was sick, and missing it, that caused me scholarships or whatever, because the coaches didn't back me then. You know, because they stopped believing in me, because I played football, basketball, and baseball. But I did things, I'm not gonna blame the school, but me getting high, and eventually it turned into a habit. You know, first it was fun, then it became a habit, then it became necessary. You know what I'm saying? And that started early on, and you know, and in school, and it ended up after school, graduated to something, you know, that really kind of took me out, you know what I'm saying, to the end of the road before I was getting high, you know, but
Yeah, like LG said, him and I played, we left Frederick Douglass, we attended East Side School together. Yes, we played football, well, it was enough of us at East Side School that we formed two teams. We had a freshman team and we had a JV team. I can recall we did go undefeated with our freshman team. I think we ended up losing.
The JV team, I think, personally.
No, we ended up losing one game on our JV team to Franklin.
Yeah.
So we were undefeated on freshmen, and we lost one game to Franklin. They was our rival, and was our friends. So the one we battled in the mud. But Franklin ended up beating us. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else, we handled them well. You know what I'm saying? And then, like earlier Punch said, we had the reorganization, and it threw all of us over into Franklin. And I got there, and LG, you know, we had Mr. Chris, you know. I don't really think he was really fond of me, or he really didn't know my talent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He didn't know.
He wasn't no coach.
Yeah, but he didn't understand personally.
He didn't understand.
He knew about us.
He knew about us.
Me and Mark.
But he didn't see
not
me.
personally.
So
yeah.
after I played my junior year with them, I didn't play offense. I just told Mr. Chris I'll play defense, which I am not a defensive player. Okay, so he already had his team picked. So it wasn't no sense of me trying to challenge or convince him or anything else. So my senior year, I didn't graduate, but I did play for 3 games with Trent Jackson before I got myself in a little trouble. But I played my first game, and I recall very well, as you can know, I think I ran like 300-something yards, 2 touchdowns in my first game. As I came through the locker room, Mr. Chris called me, he said, "Can I speak to you for a minute?" I said, "Yeah." He looked at me and he said, "Why didn't you tell me that you can play like this, run like this?" I looked at him and said, "Because you already had your team picked," and walked away from me. Just like that. So I left it like that, you know, I wasn't chosen, but later on, you know, I know that I played with some good athletes, but competing against them, I felt I was better. Other people might think different, but I know if I would stay my junior year, wasn't nobody on that offensive team could outplay me. That was my feeling, my personal feeling. Anybody else can say what they want. You know?
I played that year where we played against East High. Or me and Mark, I mean not Mark, but me and Brian and Neil played East Side, UNLG, and we were playing on the East Side JV team. And that was a good game, because I think we won by 1 point, 1 or 2 points that game. And next thing you know, the following year come, I made varsity, and we were still, a lot of our group members, club members were still together. The sports kept us together mainly, I think, you know, because when we had nothing else to do, sports had brought us together. And even just to get out the house, for me, I just want to get out the house, because I was in the house with 6 brothers. I had to get out the house. And when I played sports, I was a different person. You know, I was a person that had something I wanted to do. And
matter of fact, you stayed in my house a lot.
yeah, I stayed there. Yeah, I just had to get out my house, you know, because our brothers, man, we hung out, but you know, when something happened with one of my brothers, we would go take care of business. But
they was brothers.
They were brothers, man, and my cousin Joe and Junebug, all of them, we all hung out in the project. And the project in '64, I was in the project. I ain't know nothing else. That's when I knew that Jakey was living in building 2, and I used to always walk down to building 2, because they would always play kickball or baseball in front of the building. And that's where I used to watch his sister Niecy. His sister Niecy used to come out there and play like she was a dude, hit the ball out and come up running, talking junk like a big brother was. I'm like, oh wow. So that's why I got to know Jakey back then with him and Bubby Blackwell and Bobby J and them. And I just growed up, and everybody used to call me Little Cheeks. And I didn't realize why they were calling me that my older brother had a reputation. And that reputation rolled downhill. Next thing I know, I had to prove my point sometime. I wasn't no fighter. I wish I was a fighter, but I had to defend myself.
The reputation, yeah.
Yeah, I had to defend. I remember one fight, and I'm gonna say this one. It was with Leslie Barkley. He used to be a bully, and he tried to bully me, and I whooped his ass. And that's when I knew I could go when I wanted to go. So, other than that, it was good.
Well, I think, in playing, we were over competitive when it came to play against each other in high school. I mean, the bragging rights was just serious. First, said one year we played a game in the mud. And I remember one year we played and it ended in a tie. We're all three high schools or something in JV. We all had a tie, and there was no champion or nothing. But as far as playing against each other, yeah, it was just real competitive. But when they reorganized and brought these guys over to Franklin, I think Percy is right. The coach we had pretty much had who he was going to play.
Right.
The only people you knew were LG and Mark Coleman. Mark had brothers play, and he didn't know a lot about Percy, so Percy didn't get a fair chance, And then the next year, Percy came out, and I mean, by this time I done graduated, and these guys still had another year. And like he said, he had a hell of a year, and then he just disappeared. And a lot of us didn't know what had happened, but.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm pretty sure Mr. Chris regrets that. But,
we had our ups and downs, all of us, some of us, we had the high road, low road, but to get out of this, man, if you stay together as a unit and friendship for the rest of your life, man, a lot can get them out of it, right? We always reached out and helped one another. We just recently lost a friend of ours, and we made some phone calls. And we put him away when he couldn't, his family wasn't able to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, what I like the people to see, man, if you just stay together, unite together, and I think, life will turn out good for everybody. Everybody don't have to be a gangster or killer like it's going on today. You know what I'm saying? Just stay united, man, and just stay in prayer. You know what I'm saying? That's my words on that.
Yeah, I would like to say, like I said, we got together and we formed a club and we ended up being a gang, more or less. But bottom line, our personal trials and tribulations, but bottom line, we all went through some stuff in life, you know what I'm saying, ups and downs. But in the final analysis, most of us are still here and we're still friends, and even though the bad parts, because I had my trials, with drugs and all that stuff, but I ended up working 30 years and retiring, you know what I'm saying? I'm proud of that, you know what I'm saying? And I know they're proud of me, you too, but I'm not the only one in the club that did that, you know what I'm saying? Or still doing their thing, but yeah, I know I made myself sick through my own behaviors, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, and I battled that for 20 years or 25 years, but I'm still here now, and like I said, I want people to know that we formed as a club at an early age, and we went through whatever, and we still friends, and I think we'll still be there for each other. We had to, so that's all.
I want them to know that we wasn't a gang. People made us like it was a gang. We started as a club, and we didn't go nowhere to start nothing. All the places we hung out at was here, the Project, and number 6. And that's the only places we go. And then somehow, I guess we just got popular or something, and that wasn't us. But we were letting people know that we wasn't no chumps, that y'all just can't do anything to us. But we wasn't going nowhere like starting nothing, If we didn't do none of that. And today, in the past couple of years, I seen the fellas come through for people's families that couldn't take care of themselves when they at their funeral time. Because a lot of people don't believe in insurance until it's too late. Right. You know, so and then after, when somebody passed away, there's no money to. But what happened, these guys down in North Carolina, Percy and Punch, they calling up here talking about buying flowers, sending money, and this other.
They'd be the first one to initiate stuff.
They'd be the first one to send money up here, and big flowers be. I remember one time we did somebody's funeral, and if only flower was there, well, the flower that we all pushed in and got, you know. So that made me feel okay, but I thought more people should have helped. But it made me feel good because the fellas was there to represent the family, and the family members thanked us for that. And
on top of that, we bought the only flower he had, plus we gave the family $400 in cash.
Yeah. And Jakey was part of that.
Yeah. I'm just honored to that they took me in years ago. I've had lasting friendships with them. I have better friendships with them than I had with my core, you know, and I'm forever grateful, you know, to these gentlemen. None but love, and watch the love. That it was a lot of rivalry, but whenever it's time to come together, they know how to come together. And I'm just thankful and grateful. And then when something happens, they give me a call. I just feel good for being attached with them. The responsibility, the camaraderie. I'm forever grateful for that. You know, and none but love. You know.
Here to Baden Street, you know, since they moved. And I don't know if they started it at Baden Clinton, but they moved back here now, and they are doing some of those very things, like afternoon programs and stuff like that, you know, and they want to start some of the old leagues back, like the little leagues and stuff like that. That's in the plans. I don't know if they're going to do it, but that's what they're talking about, because they realize they got to reach the public if they're going to exist, you know what I'm saying?
What we really did mostly, we found a way to communicate with the place that we all enjoyed. And I think if a lot of other young people find that out and find a place that they can go to communicate with each other, they might can imitate, but you can't duplicate what we did.
No.
You know, we got about 54 years of just loving, and when these guys, we still here. But we found a way to make it happen. And you talk about fighting and all that stuff. We never went nowhere and started a fight. We never did. We never ran from one. We all had respect for all the elder people, grown-ups. And you gotta have some of that, otherwise you're not gonna, you know. We didn't walk around with guns. We went to school. But Baden Street was our way of, you know, our gathering hole, so to say. And it had all us connected. And we found a way to use Baden Street to communicate and stay together. And I think if everybody else try that, they'll be in just as good a shape as we were.
I'd like to add, Baden Street was, I come to that celebration a couple months back, couple weeks, and they celebrated 120 years. And I felt real good to be a part of it. But would like to say too that we're a part of the Hanover Houses Picnic Committee. We've been doing a celebration picnic right over number 6 school for the last 20 years. So now we've become affiliated with Baden Street. What we want to do right now, what can we do? You know, can we come do some senior program? Could we do something with the youth? But COVID killed everything. Everybody's on a reset right now. What can we do? So right now we're just trying to find out what these gentlemen here, when they come to town, what could we do to continue to help us mentor, because they have a lot of skills that they bring. But just like right now, we just got to put something together, you know, because Baden Street was our foundation. And the foundation was you become a part of, we can have a place to meet, and then we can invite others to come in to develop a plan. So we just want to continue to be a part of, man, because we love this community. And I'm just forever grateful to Baden Street and to the powers that be, but just, as Percy had mentioned, like just continue the prayer and continue for good hope and for all of us. God, thank you.
I think most of the problem starts at home, you know, and if they allowed to do whatever they want to do at home, they're gonna come out here and think they could do the same thing out here. I think the problem started when they start cutting programs out the city. They had all type of programs for us too when we didn't have nothing else. We even, like I was saying about the jobs we used to work for the summertime, and Jakey was our supervisor, right? And I ain't gonna never forget that, man, because the supervisor, his supervisors would always catch us on a break, laying in the wheelbarrow, sitting on the bench, laying on the grass. And Jakey would have something to tell this guy every time while we was doing that. And we never got in trouble. And
Jakey was a good liar.
Yeah, yeah, but we all have ups and downs. What's important to me today is having God in my life.
Yes, yes.
You know, because a lot of times when you're by yourself, ain't nobody else to talk to. There's a lot of times when people don't answer your phones, you got to talk to God. I mean, God, He hadn't let me down yet, and I'm going through stuff now, and I know He's gonna carry me through, and I know that everything gonna be all right. And I'm glad that now that we say here, I'm not thinking about Buffalo that much, like I'm thinking about the Dallas Cowboys. But anyway, I think everything starts with God. I don't care who you are, what you got, where you've been. Everything starts with God, and then if you have faith in God, man, anything is possible. That's what I realized today, and I don't have no problem giving the guy begging money on the corners. I don't have no problem giving him $1. $1 ain't gonna hurt me. You never know who you might help or what might help. It's all about helping some other people, man. Not just the kids. It's adults out here that need helps. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna say this and shut up. I know I'm gonna be kind of suffer with this. This city could find places for people from other places to live, but they can't find places for people to live that's already here. This is the problem that I got. What's going on now? And I'm not saying I ain't racist. Like when Puerto Rico had that hurricane over there, 3,000 people came to Rochester, and they found a place for them when they got here. And they still got people on the corner sleeping on the bridges and stuff that been here all along. I don't know. I got mixed feelings about that. And I'm gonna leave that alone too. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, we came from the concrete, no gleam, but we rise. Living life where the shadows feel heavy beneath these skies. Yeah, waking up to sirens. My block's like a heartbeat. Cracks in the pavement, stories hidden beneath our feet. Kids playing double dutch, dreams drawn on the curves. But life's got a way of giving you what you don't deserve. Hustling in the shadow, every corner's got a guard. Can't let your dreams fade like a wax on a card. Got my crew on the stoop, we reminisce the night. Underneath the flickering street light, we shine bright. Concrete dreams, we're living in a world unseen. Fighting for our lives. Yeah, we're chasing that green. From the lows to the highs, we learn how to strive in the heart of the prize. We know how to thrive. Yeah, we got a rhythm in our steps, a beat in our veins. Running from our past while we're walking through the pain. Making memories, the laughter echoes in our walls. Neighbors become familiar, we're breaking down the stalls. Every struggle's just a chapter, turn the page, let it flow. Girls playing hopscotch while the boys learn to throw. We hustle hard, but we got dreams way above. Each note that we create is a melody of love. Concrete dreams, we're living in a world.
It was the best that comes from number one. Lifetime of friendship, camaraderie, nothing but. They're the best in the world. Number one. They're the number one. They're the number one. Number one.
Yeah, we face the storms, but I don't got no guilt. I'm hand in hand, united through the life that we claim. Building futures on this turf. Foundations made of hard, but every struggle that we face is a brand new start.
Concrete dreams, we're living proud and so free. Echoes of our laughter in this project's heartbeat. So we stand together in this life we choose to ride.